Welcome to EYE on Sci-Fi podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 236 of EYE on Sci-Fi podcast, the podcast where we share with you terrific indie, science fiction, and fantasy, online short films, web series, and other closely related media. We also, on occasion, have conversations with the very talented and interesting creators who are producing terrific indie speculative work. Thank you for joining me. This episode, you are joining me in the middle of a four-part series I'm doing on science fiction and fantasy films that should never be remade. Now, the first part of this series is in our previous episode, number 235, so please definitely check that out. But in this part, I'm going to discuss one of my personal favorite of all time science fiction films, and that is 1999's The Matrix. Now, it's hard to believe that I'm going to say this, and I'm also going to be aging myself, but The Matrix was released in theaters over 25 years ago. When this film was released, I didn't want to go see it. My friends had to persuade me and drag me to the theater. Why? Because I wasn't a big Keanu Reeves fan. But I finally agreed to go because Lawrence Fishburne was in the cast, and that intrigued me. This film was released in the early days of the internet, so being spoiled really wasn't a possibility like it is now. There was no social media, no YouTube. So this, I think, was really part of the last of the golden era of Hollywood before the internet really advanced. And now it's really difficult not to be spoiled about a film coming out. So, like audiences all over the world, my friends and I went into the theater cold about The Matrix. Again, I was thinking that it was going to be some dumb action flick, but man, was I wrong. And all of us and audiences across the globe were blown away by this cinematic masterpiece. And it went on to become not only a blockbuster, but a very influential film that many others have tried to copy. So, what makes The Matrix so special? In my opinion, it is because it is so innovative, not only in terms of its visual effects, but the production design, including the sets, the costuming, and the story that goes in directions that you could not possibly anticipate. It truly can be described as mind-bending. So, just to give you a brief non spoiler, because I don't want to spoil this 25-year-old film for those of you all who may not have seen it yet. But Keanu Reeves stars as Neo. And Neo is a typical corporate worker bee, most of us can relate, who works in a cubicle in a reality that looks a lot like ours. But when he meets Morpheus, portrayed by Lawrence Fishburne, he soon discovers a very disturbing secret about the reality that he lives in. Now, again, this film goes in directions that are unpredictable, and it really made a lasting impact on audiences and cinema as a whole. I truly believe that the Wachowskis, the sibling team who directed this film, I wish in a way that they did not make any of the sequels because this film, the original Matrix, its narrative is pretty self-contained. It is a classic. Every time I watch The Matrix, I am thoroughly entertained and appreciate the skill that went into creating this motion picture. So, trying to reimagine or reboot or remake this film, I think it shouldn't even be attempted. Now, many would argue that The Matrix Resurrections that came out a couple of years ago was almost a beat by beat copy of The Matrix, and having seen that film, I would have to agree. And we all know how that went. But again, I think it would be ill advised to try and remake this film. It should be left alone for the cinematic masterpiece that it is. Okay, that's it for this episode, everyone. Thank you again for joining me. And remember, the first part of this series is episode 235. And next episode, 237, would be part three of sci fi and fantasy films that should never be remade. Make sure to check out the link tree in the show notes of this episode so that you can visit our podcast archive, our website, the7thmatrix.com, where we have curated a host of terrific independent science fiction short films, web series, and other closely related media, including creator interviews. And sign up for our newsletter. Monday through Friday, we will send you a noteworthy news item about the genre. So it can be a book, television series, or film recommendation, a podcast episode from Eye on Sci-Fi, or other podcasts that are related to the genre, and much more. And for becoming a subscriber, you will receive a free gift from us just as a thank you for supporting us in that way. I also ask you to visit our support section because without the kind and generous support of listeners and viewers like you, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do here at Ion Sci-Fi Podcast and over at the Seventh Matrix. And finally, make sure to leave us a review and rating wherever you get your podcast, because that does help others find us. And we appreciate all of this a great deal. So, until next episode, which will be part three of our series of sci fi fantasy films that should never, ever be remade, make sure to take a break, escape the mundane, and enter the fantastic. Take care.